Okay. All right. Branding students, welcome to our second week of special speakers. And my distinguished guest today, my friend, Dan White. Dan and I met when I found his smart marketing book. I got so excited about it. I reached out to him, and I put him in touch with my good friend Douglas Burdett, who put together this wonderful marketing book podcast, which he just shut down after 503 episodes. In fact, Dan has 3 of his books featured in the marketing book podcast. I'll share those links with you later. So one thing you should know about Dan is he is the genius, the mastermind behind the BRANDZ Kantar brand research, which goes way back between the Financial Times, which is like the Wall Street Journal of United Kingdom, Bloomberg. We know Bloomberg, that's the competitor to Wall Street Journal, and Dan's genius as a research, started in marketing research, and now he is a very famous marketing illustrator. He's been a brand consultant. And I don't want to say any more, Dan. Why don't you just take over and lead us, please, through the lesson?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I love the phrase genius. I mean, I'm very vain, so I love that. Okay, cool. Let me share my screen with you. Cool. So what I've prepared for you today is basically an introduction to brand marketing via 15 illustrations of my illustrations. Okay, so I'll take you through these, but before I do that, I will give you a very brief introduction to myself. I've worked in market research, marketing, and marketing consultancy for 35 years now. So I started off as a market researcher. I then moved into market research, thought leadership, and as Tom mentioned, developing new research products, ways of evaluating brands and marketing effectiveness, including BRANDZ, which is the most famous one, but various other techniques around advertising as well. I became a CMO for 8 years, so I got a taste of the other side of what it's like to actually be a practitioner of marketing rather than an advisor. And then in the last sort of 5 years, I've been focusing on training, capability development, and I've done a lot of writing, hence my books, and also illustrations and speaking and stuff like that. So that's kind of the way my career has developed. Cool. So let's take you through some of my illustrations and the concepts behind them. Okay, so I thought a good place to start, we're talking here today about brand marketing, okay? Brand marketing. And a good place to start is, what is a brand? And if you look up on ChatGPT or Google or whatever, definition of a brand, you will find about 30 or 40 quite different definitions. There isn't a single unified definition of a brand. Obviously, there's a legal trademark side of it, but that's not that useful for us in terms of for marketers. I found a definition like this to be the most useful. So in other words, if you think of a brand as a set of mental connections to the brand name, things that spring to people's mind when they come across the brand or think of the brand, those connections are what make a brand. They're not the same in everyone's heads, but the totality of those connections across a relevant audience and how people respond to those connections, how relevant they are, what they make people think of and do, that's a good way of thinking about a brand. So for example, I did this 5 years ago. So when it says in the head of a 50-year-old, it's similar to in the head of this current 54-and-a-half-year-old, right? Now, I'm sure, I can imagine all of you now are thinking Apple, 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 and you will have certain connotations. You'll have certain associations, thoughts, feelings, images, sounds, all sorts of things will come to your mind because Apple is such a big, strong brand. It's one of the biggest brands in the world still. It's in the top. It's been in the top 3 for like 20 years. Now, mine will be a little bit different for yours, but you'll have similar things. Now, because I'm more like Tom's age, obviously not quite as old as Tom, but getting on for Tom's age, um, there will be some things like the Apple, the Mac in the bottom right. That's literally the first, I don't know, computer I used at university, right? And I think of Steve Jobs. I mean, sadly he passed away quite a few years ago now, so he's less salient than he used to be. But the name Apple, the logo, the smartphone, the iPhones, iPods, not that relevant anymore, but some of you may have, when you're younger, have used iPods, etc. So there's a whole set of associations, and what these bring with you, what these conjure in your mind, make the brand a powerful entity. It's what's in the consumer's mind, your minds and consumers' minds, that's important. So that's what a brand is, and that's how you build a brand. So how does a brand influence purchasing? So I love this way of thinking, which is when people come across a brand, they might just see the logo or see the name or whatever. Then a powerful brand has lots of powerful associations, lots and lots, a lot comes to mind. And that just the fact that a lot comes to mind biases the consumer to thinking it's a good choice. That's just the way the mind works. If something is salient, the brain thinks it's a good thing. And it works both ways around. The other way around is if you kind of need something or you want something, and if a brand happens to come to mind when you think about what you need or what you want, that's really important. And that is what the Ehrenberg Bass Institute have been cleverly and brilliantly been explaining for years now. If your brand comes to mind when people want something or need something, that is a huge competitive advantage compared with brands that don't. So that's how they define brands. Now, the point is, when a brand comes to mind powerfully and intuitively, when you're thinking about buying a category, it feels like the right choice. And yes, it won't always be the brand that's bought, but it's a huge bias. Sometimes there'll be some other brand that's less salient, as we call it, because it might be half the price, and if they can make a profit at half the price, great. But when we're talking about brand building, it's that strong bias to make you buy it and pay more for it. Cool. So now strategy is interesting. When you think about strategy, one way of thinking about strategy is deciding or figuring out, ideally through research and analysis, what associations are the ones you should be building to make that brand more salient for more people. That's a lot of people go, well, that's not strategy. Yes, it is. I mean, this is kind of the fundamentals of strategy in the human mind, is how can you make people think of your brand more strongly, more often, for when people want to buy that category. And that's what strategy is. And it's kind of a modern way of thinking about strategic direction. And then on the other side, I've skipped on two. On the other side is, well, okay, how do you build brands? How do you build these associations? And I think that's why I put Pavlov. That's supposed to be one of Pavlov's dogs. I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with Pavlov. Yeah, if you're not, don't worry, I can send you a link. But the point is, brands are built by association. So whenever you experience the brand in any way, or some of the brand's advertising, it doesn't matter. Whatever you also experience at the same time tends to get connected. And that's kind of what advertising is. You're kind of creating, and your ad is basically trying to get the brand to come to mind, and then some excellent, wonderful, relevant associations to be linked to it over time. And that's why consistency and repetition is so important, for example, in advertising. So that's how a brand is built. And if you're a good brand manager, you know how to spend, for the money you spend, you get the maximum kind of, additional association built in people's minds. So it's all about the mind. Right, okay, cool. Now, why are we doing all this? Now, the thing is, when you look at data, when you compare brands that are strong, when I say strong, I mean, in other words, brands that everyone has heard of or come to mind really quickly when people are thinking about a category and buying a category. Now, those brands have a huge competitive advantage, right? You can see I've illustrated it here. So, for example, compared to a weak brand to a strong brand, for the same selling price, a strong brand will sell a lot more volume, or the other way around, depending on your strategy as a business. For this, it's the other way around. You can also increase the amount. You can increase the selling price and still maintain a high volume. So hence profitability. So whether or not you want to go up or along will depend on your business strategy and competencies. But the point is, it makes you either sell more or make more money from what you sell. That's what we call the demand curve. This demand curve is it's universal. Obviously, if you increase the price, keep increasing the price, you tend to sell less, but you make more profit per item. And but advertising helps you beat the trend, let's call it. Cool. Now, how do you build a brand? Now, I think it's useful to think of two stages or two components of how to build a strong, profitable brand. The first one is you need to create a vision or a strategy, brand strategy, for developing a brand that will be effective and profitable and appealing to lots of people. Now, this is theoretical. This is just having a vision. This is just writing it down on paper. This will have no effect on your sales unless you do what's on the right, which is to activate it. You need to use the vision, you put it on your wall, you go, that's what we're trying to achieve, this will work, and then you activate it through the marketing mix, essentially. Marketing execution, marketing activation, these are the kind of words that people tend to use. Yeah, so have a creative vision that's right, and hopefully your strategic thinking will mean you've got the right idea, and then execute it. Now, in terms of the vision, there are lots of different frameworks you could use to kind of define what you want your brand to be, right? The brand key is quite famous. I don't know if any of you have come across the brand key. It was developed by Added Value for Unilever, I think, about 30 years ago. This is my own version of it, but it doesn't matter that much, actually, which framework you use, because they have a lot in common. To show you what I mean by here's an example of Snickers, and Snickers have a very, very clear idea of what they want to be as a brand. They know who they're targeting: people who eat chocolate snacks, or even just need snacks. You could even go broader. It's not just chocolate, but anyway. Now, their proposition is about hunger. They've decided they want to be the brand that fills you up when you are hungry, and that's great. They have come up. They have come up with an insight. I'll come back to that helps them come up with some great advertising. Right, the idea that people's temperament changes when they're hungry. I'm sure you know the famous catchphrase. You're not you. When you're hungry, but there is an insight behind that. Everyone goes, yeah, oh God, yeah, I get grumpy. I get, what's that word, Tom? Hangry. That's the one.
Hangry. Yep.
Exactly. It's actually a relatively new word, but it shows that it's a universal thing. Now, I want you to really focus though on these needs and the associations that go with them. These are really important. And this is what Ehrenberg Bass Institute talk about all the time. You need to to grow your brand, you need to make sure that needs, when people have a need, they think of your brand. And that's not easy. You need to create memories around your brand that mean that when people have that need, they think of your brand. And Snickers have done that brilliantly. So then to just finish off, testaments are kind of like things that are like truths or facts about your brand. Like, for example, Snickers is full of peanuts and peanuts are nutritious. Therefore, it's very credible that if you're hungry and you have a Snickers, it'll fill you up, right? It's a fact. It's like something to do with brand. Now, assets, or in full, distinctive brand assets, are possibly the most underrated things that you can do. You can build around your brand to help your brand come to mind really quickly when people need the product, need the category. Now, this is a new thing, Tom. I haven't in my training. I don't often go this far, but I'm going to go this far this time, which is to say that when you think about needs and associations, one of the ways you can plan the growth of your brand is to think specifically about what's called mental market share. Okay, and the idea of mental market share is, now these at the bottom I've called it CEP, as in category entry point. Now, a category entry point it's just another fancy way of talking about a different need or occasion where people might want to buy the category. Okay, there's nothing more than that. It's needs and occasion. So, for example, in this theoretical category, there might be 5 major needs. Sometimes it can be as many as 12, but it doesn't matter. So the principle is the same. Now, your brand will probably come to mind more for some needs than the others based on, what it contains, your historical advertising, whatever, all that stuff. So, for example, this theoretical brand, although it's very close to a real pasta brand in Sweden, weirdly, the category entry point for a particular need, it's not the biggest need in the category, it's the 4th biggest need in the category, but this brand does really well. You can see when people think of that need, it has almost a 50% share of mind, as in 50% of the time when people think of that need, they think of your brand. Now that's obviously very, very cool. But it's quite weak on category entry point 3. Okay, it's not as strong, and that's it's quite a lot bigger. So the reason I'm showing you this is it's kind of like modern strategy is about thinking about, well, which of these category entry points should we focus on over the next year or two? That's literally what marketers are now thinking about. Which needs and occasions should we be trying to focus on, and how can we do that most effectively? Obviously, there's a lot more behind it. You need to figure out why, what is it about our brand and its potential that we think we can own. That's the phrase people use, own that category entry point. Can we own category entry point 3? We're a bit behind at the moment, but could we? Maybe we could. Maybe we've got some new innovation that means we're going to be the best at delivering against need 3. So it's not easy to decide which ones to focus on, but that is basically modern brand strategy. Which category entry point should we focus on that we are going to win? I'm hoping you'll have some questions on this. This is quite complex stuff. This is complex stuff, but this is where we're at in terms of the state of the art in terms of marketing and brand building. So cool. Right. Now, once you've decided how are we going to build our brand, what associations do we want to build in order to come to mind and be top of mind when people are thinking about a particular need or occasion or whatever, yeah? That's where classic marketing activation comes in. Yeah, what are we going to do? This is the stuff that consumers will see and feel and hear. And the four P's of marketing are still as relevant as they've always been, right? I know they've diverged and people have found six P's, seven P's, eight P's, whatever. It's fine. They're all relevant, but they're all based primarily on the four P's. One which is product. Product means the thing that you do for your customers, your potential customers. Yeah, your product. Product as in product or service. How you deliver. Yes, that can extend into people because people are, if you're a service category, the people are a really important part of your product. Yeah, your product delivery. That's right. So it's the concept's still right. Price, wow, price is always a fundamental part of what you're offering. And the way you need to deliver what you do depends a lot on whether you want to be a value brand, a mid-price brand, a premium brand, or a luxury brand. So it has a lot of implications, but it's a big part of what you deliver and the benefit people get from it. Now, place, there are lots of phrases for place these days. What do people talk? Distribution is an aspect of place. Prominent, if you're packaged goods, how prominent you are on shelf is important. People also use place to mean also whether you show up in Google searches. If you're searching for a category, do you turn up? That's place. Are you there? And there was another one I was going to say, Tom. I've forgotten now. What is not another place idea? No, it's gone. I'm sure it'll come back to me if you think of it. And then promotion. Promotion. The word promotion often mean you think of it as being sales stuff, but the original four P's, promotion just means how you can kind of make people want your product, and that includes advertising. And obviously within that becomes, how are you going to position yourself in an attractive way that makes people want to buy you. But there's a lot within promotion, both advertising and activation as well. But anyway, these are the marketing levers, as you might call them, that you can use to build your brand and your sales. Cool. Now this is one of my favorite and most famous illustrations, which it's basically it's like a modern, go back. It's a modern interpretation of the four P's. Yeah, the four P's framework, love it. But the way people talk about these different things these days tend to be the phrases that you can see now on this marketing mix. So, people talk about either brand predisposition or brand equity or brand, whatever, brand building. That what we're talking about that is using particularly advertising and user experience, having a good user experience so that people like and want and are interested in your brand fundamentally. In your brain, there is a predisposition to liking this brand because of the kind of experiences, media experiences and product experiences that they may have had. Okay, now the thing is, just because your brand is kind of primed in the mind, it's got a strong predisposition, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be bought, because there's another whole battleground. The other whole battleground is what happens when people actually go out and buy whatever it is, decide to buy. And that will be what they buy will also be influenced by what's available, whether they notice it because of the pack or logo and notice it at all, the point of sale experience, which sometimes is trivial, but if you're buying an expensive product like a car or a television, the salesperson is going to have a massive influence on that may change your mind. And of course the price is the other big factor. So these two combined, this is the kind of I think did Google call this the messy middle? I think they do, where
Yes.
brand predisposition, yeah, mixes with what you experience when you're actually buying a category, and it combines to determine whether you buy it or not, and the revenue that you therefore generate if you, as a brand owner. So I think this is popular because this diagram's popular because it helps you think about those two, and however you phrase them, this concept of predisposition and then kind of active impact of what you experience when you're buying or activation is really common. I'm going to show you two more slides that if you can understand how the three slides relate, you will have nailed it. You will have nailed your understanding of brand marketing. So the next one is, for example, yeah, brand building and activation. That's a phrase you're going to hear a lot. Binet and Field from the UK have spent huge amounts of energy, time, and money to understand whether brands should spend more money on brand building, which is the predisposition side, yeah, or activation, which is more the path to purchase side. They have a conclusion, which is that you should spend a little bit more on brand building. But the most important point, on average, but the most important point is you need both. So I use this soccer analogy, and I'm so old that my analogy comes from my brand building example is David Beckham. Hopefully, most of you will have still have heard of David Beckham. Is he still famous? I don't know, not really.
Not probably not so much over here. I know he's still, you guys over there still know him.
I know it's sad, but yeah, I will. If I could come up with an analogy with an big American sport, I will come up with that.
I'm trying to
Oh,
think of that. There's a real famous soccer player who's playing in America that sells out stadiums. I don't remember his name. I don't know a lot about soccer. Maybe somebody here in the class knows who we're talking about. Um,
ooh. Well, as
Argent.
in, but the point here is you need to know soccer, right? And you need to understand the difference between a midfielder, right? A midfielder is a game maker, they call it. You know that they get the ball. They do enough to get the ball in the vicinity of the goal. You know, that's brand predisposition. It's like, okay, you know, we've got a chance here, but you still need a striker to head it into the net, right? And the combination is what's powerful. And obviously, heading into the net tends to be media, for example, in our analogy, a media that are kind of often quite close to the actual purchase, really close in time or space. So that's why Google search is such a powerful channel, because if people who want to buy something online, they type it in and then Google sends them somewhere to buy it. It's really, really, you know, really powerful. But in old school traditional media, posters that are just outside like shops, like it's a hot day, right? What happens? People put out the little walls. Oh, again, it's just a cultural difference. You know, like ice cream brand signage. Oh, it triggers people. Oh yes, perfect. I want one of that. You go in and you buy your ice cream. You see what I mean? It's the concept is true, whichever channels you're going to use. Build predisposition through storytelling media that's going to be remembered for years, like TV, cinema, YouTube, etc. But also combine it with activation that's really close to when you might actually want to buy the thing to trigger you to do it. And that depends on where and how people, you know, buy. If they buy online, then you're going to want to use digital channels for activation at the right time and place. Offline, it's different. Cool. And then I have played with the leaky analogy so many times. This is my new favorite anyway. Tom, you won't have seen this because I only did this recently for a company in Canada. Yeah, the idea is whatever you do, Yeah, it's not a one-time thing. You can't just say, "Oh, I've done this and I've got all these buyers and they're going to buy me forever." It's just so not true. For loads and loads of reasons, your buyers will continually evolve. The people who bought you this year or this month, some of them will buy you again, but a lot of them won't. And you can't control it. You can't control it. It'll happen. It depends on life circumstances. People come in and out of the category. People coming in and out of money, so they might want to buy a more expensive or cheaper brand, or they just get bored. I mean, don't worry about it. It will happen. But things like advertising are quite good at creating that brand predisposition, at least, to get those little drips, at least roughly where you need them. Yeah. And things, activation media, and here I've chosen sales promotions as a very powerful way of, activating purchase, can kind of blow them in the right direction so that you keep chopping up the leaky bucket more than you lose. And that leaky bucket analogy is really important because it makes you realize it's a constant thing and it's against competitors and it's over time. You've got to keep, that's how it works. Yeah, Tom, you've probably seen this before, but you didn't see the new buyers
Yeah,
bit.
I've not seen this version of it.
Yeah, yeah, because the new buyers, it's important because they can come from other places, not just your world. Of course, I can't believe I forgot that originally. It's new buyers from other, from people lapsed from other brands. That's where they come in. Yeah.
It's good. I like it.
Oh, cool. Look, okay, look, those you've had your 15 slides. How are we doing for time, Tom? We've had
We're
half
doing great. If
an hour.
you want to stop sharing, and we'll just go. We'll ask some
Yeah, let's stop
questions.
sharing because I've talked enough, haven't I? Let's be honest.
No. I thought you fantastic. Oh, right. I see it. Well, there's a bunch of people. People on the iPhone. I get it.
Have you got some questions for me? I'd
Yeah.
love questions.
Now's the time to ask some questions, and it doesn't have to just be around branding. Dan has written a book, Smart Marketing, Smart Advertising, Soft Skills. Um, he's been a practitioner, a CMO. So you can ask him about anything, and this is the guy who will answer it. So you can take yourself off the mic and just say it out loud or put it in the chat. I'll be happy to ask it for you. So who's going to go first? I'll go first, Dan, with my question.
Okay.
Would you not say the power of a brand is if you can raise your price in a tough period of economics?
Yeah, definitely.
Because if you can't, you're enough. You're just everybody else. There's nothing important. If you, like Apple comes out with new iPhones and they're starting at $1,200 and people buy them. No, they don't. Bulk. What do you think of that? About pricing
Yeah,
being
I
the
mean,
indicator of a strong brand?
I think if you had to come up with one indicator of a strong brand, it's that. It's like all other things being equal, would you pay more for it or not? And do you know the curve I showed you, the demand curve? Effectively, that demand curve, comparing a weak brand versus a strong brand, is saying basically people will pay more for the same for what you might argue is a similar thing. They will pay more. Now, of course, if they will pay more, you have two opportunities. You can either get them to pay more, increase your price, keep your price high, even in economic hardship, times of economic hardship. Or if you want to, if that works for your business, you keep your price quite relatively low, more mainstream, but you'll sell loads more, and that's kind of what Apple kind of do. I mean, with their products, their SE products are not that expensive, and they sell a lot because of the brand. Or people will still buy the top end, $1,200 um, latest
Yeah, with
iPhone.
all the features, all the greatest
Yeah,
features,
with
like
all the
like they
features,
just
but it doesn't matter. Either way, you're creating value, and I think, and you could argue that that is the whole point of branding, is to increase value, to
yep,
enhance value.
yep.
And if you can increase value of your brand through people paying more or buying more for the same price, by more than you spend in your marketing investment, you are doing a fantastic job as a marketer. Yeah.
All right. Now, who's going to ask the next question? Take yourself off mute or throw it in the chat box. I'll be happy to do it for you.
I have a question.
All right. Go ahead.
But back to your point, that kind of builds on what Apple does now. When they drop a new phone or release a new phone, they phase out the other ones, so you can't even have the option to buy the older phones. But our question was, how did you get into like writing these branding books?
So that feels like two quite different points. I'm a bit confused, but no, I get
No,
it.
I was just talking about because you're talking about Apple. I was just thinking about that.
He
But
was
Oh
then
yeah,
like,
making,
yeah, just
yeah, he was
reflecting on
making a
what we
point
do.
that that's one of the ways they help increase their new sales is they phase out the old guys.
Yes, yes, that's exactly. That's that. You know, if you make the perfect product that lasts forever,
Once is enough.
once is enough. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I, yeah, and I know that this gets into ethical considerations, doesn't it? Because yes, they do drop it after, well, it's about 10 years, and then they don't even support a product. So product, yeah, yeah, good point.
But the other thing that
Um,
I've also heard about Apple is they do
yeah,
keep these phones around longer. So the ecosystem lasts longer than their competitive phone, the Google phone.
is that
I get,
right? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Is that
yeah,
right?
that in other words, if you have an older Apple phone, you could stay, you can use it
For a bit
longer.
longer than
Yes,
longer than an
yes. Than your
Android.
competition. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's about, it feels like about 10 years. I do. I work with like a voluntary organization where I try and educate older people on on technology and how to use iPhones, and you'd be amazed by some of the questions I get. Literally, I got the other day is how can I rewind on YouTube because they didn't know that you just touch it and on the. But
Wow.
anyway, that's not the point. The point. No, yeah.
So
So
how did you start writing books? I guess that's the question.
yeah, okay, yes, yeah. I started writing books by drawing books. Drawing. My drawings actually came first. I have this whole part. In fact, I need to do a bit of a clear out. Right? I have all these old. Right, see these. This is just. These are just from the last sort of 2 years, I suppose. These books, right? Because I scribble in them. In fact, today this was my latest. This is this morning's
Wow.
scribble. This. By the way, this compares the attention arc for traditional video like TV versus online video. By the way, yeah, I'm always drawing things and notes and trying to explain concepts through visuals. So I had a pile this big of all these books, and I thought there's some good stuff in here. So I tried to then write the words around it. Basically, I wrote the words and realised there's a good story here to be put into a book. That's how I started. Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Jacob?
yeah,
Okay,
that
awesome.
the illustrations were like like I mean, I thought they're the most interesting part about the slides. It portrays all your ideas like perfectly.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Yeah, my thing is, well, my passion is to illustrate the
Mhm.
concepts, but I'm passionate about the concepts, but then I want to share them through something that people will get. Like the leaky bucket helped me. If I started these illustrations by thinking, well, what will help me remember the concept, but then I found that other people kind of found it useful. I thought, oh, I should write some books and put the illustrations in them. Yeah.
Isn't that how you started, Dan? You were doing these for yourself, so
Yeah.
you get a better idea of these
Yeah. Just
concepts.
like to help me remember the ideas and the things that I thought were important, useful. But of course, because I thought I was the only person who was a visual learner, but it turns out there are a lot of people out there who are visual learners. Yeah.
Now, are all your illustrations on your website, Dan? Are they all your is all your websites all your illustrations on your website?
Almost all of them, not every single one, because I'm still playing with some, and there are a few that slip through the net because I don't make money from the website, so it's hard to make sure it's up to
Right,
date.
right, right, right. Yeah,
Other, but I need to make some money. Yeah, it's fine. But But 90, I'd say 80% of all my illustrations are on the website. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and we've got the website address was been shared with the students. Okay, who's going to ask the next question? Remember, this is an expert in so many areas of marketing, so somebody's going to have to want to hear some response to a question. Who's next? If you want to put it in the chat, I'll be happy to read it out. Man, they're shy and quiet this morning. I don't know why.
There's no such, well, there's two things. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Or if it is a stupid question, at least half the other people here will probably have the same question. I always find it's always true. Anyway.
Who? Oh, here comes a question. Go ahead.
Hi, the background noise, please. But there was a point in your presentation, like when like with a business, like it's inevitable that like there are going to be people who purchase from you, like oh, this is that close to the camera. Like it's inevitable, like in a business, that there are going to be people who purchase just like one time, and so like in branding and marketing, like should you just forget about that person, or like is there like should you come up with like a different strategy, or like I don't know, a different kind of promotion to like reach out to that person who'll buy just once or twice?
For the occasional buyer, the Bryman Sharp's binomial distribution curve. Can you address that, Dan?
Yeah, I think I can. I've been practicing this kind of thinking a lot recently. Yeah, there are people who will just buy you once or twice. Yeah. Now the thing is, a lot of your volume, a lot of your sales will come from those people who just buy you once or twice and may not buy you again, or might not buy you again for a little while and then come back to you. Yeah. And actually, it's surprising how much of most brands' sales come from those very infrequent or occasional buyers. I mean, much more than people typically imagine. Which means that you need to embrace the idea that you need to make sure your marketing is helping to make sure you maximize the sales that come from those very occasional buyers. And that is, and the converse to that is the idea of loyalty, or let's call it behavioral loyalty. Don't worry about loving a brand. Behavioral loyalty, it's rare, and it goes away quickly. So the better way to think about it is, don't think about individuals, don't think about frequency and loyalty. Think about just making sure your brand is ready there in as many people's minds as possible for when they happen to need it. And that may be only once or twice in a year, and then not for a year. And that might be other people who are going to buy it 20 times a year. It doesn't matter. The point is, create associations in a lot of people's brains so that whenever, for whatever reason, whatever occasion, they do buy it. And that's a different way of thinking from most marketing. And a lot of marketing is way wrong by thinking you get a consumer and you try and keep them and get them to buy them more often or forever. It does not work. It's just all of the maths, all of the data suggests that's not true. Think about what's happening en masse in the brains so you get more and more people. And think about, the leaky bucket. Suck up as many new people as possible, because you are going to lose those drips. You can't avoid it. You cannot avoid it. It will happen. Loyalty, behavioral loyalty is not a useful, there are a few tiny exceptions, and we can talk about those if we have time, but yeah, generally, does that help you?
Does that answer the question, Jessica?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, who's got a question? Oh, hold on here. Where do you draw the line between a company that has consistent, impactful advertising and hold on a second. Between a company that has consistent and impactful advertising and a truly strong brand? How do you know whether or not those needed associations are being made?
Sorry, can you just say that again? Or at least,
I'm going to say, I'm guessing, how can you how does a marketer know that consistent associations are being made around your brand? I guess that's more like speaking to how can you measure how well your brand's doing with your market?
Yeah, I mean, you know the diagram, I can try it again now, but do you know the diagram that was called mental market share? Yeah. And it talked about it illustrated it with 5 different needs, category entry points. And you know, we are absolutely certain now as an industry, I'm speaking on behalf of the industry, that if a brand can nudge the needle on some or more or several of those category entry points and move those bars up, I should probably show it again. You know, the point is, if you can become more top of mind for more of those entry points, your brand is going to grow. It's absolutely going to grow because the maths, there's no question about the statistics. So I'm not sure that fully answers the question.
Did that help to the person that answered or asked the question? Was that good? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. So we've been on this now about 45 minutes, Dan. So I really appreciate your time. I want to finish up with one final question. These folks will be going out into the market as marketing practitioners. You know, there's some seniors, there's some juniors, sophomores. So any advice on their marketing careers? And you could speak to the soft skills book. Any advice on how they can get a good leg up when they go out, begin their careers?
Well, I mean, I always say the same thing, which is a bit boring if you've come across. I kind of feel that to succeed in any walk of life, from my experience, you know, in any professional career, let's say, you need probably an equal balance between your technical skills, and your technical skills are things you will learn through academia in particular. You know, the science, the maths, the principles behind, for example, marketing. Yeah, but I've noticed that you know, the people who succeed in their careers have an equal balance of that and what I tend to use, I tend to call soft skills. And what I mean by that is I like their interpersonal skills, communication skills, influencing skills. They're about how you connect with other people, and if you could connect with other people in a way that makes them want to listen to you, and you're true to your word, so that they learn to know that you're honest and respect you. These are really powerful. I mean, I worked for a while in sales, right? And I noticed that actually I was more successful, not necessarily on whether we delivered the best solution or whatever it was, but people tend to give business to people they want to work with, people they like and respect. Because why would you give money and success to someone you hate? I mean, that's human nature is. I want to work with people, that I like and I think I'll have fun and I will learn from, you know, and I kind of want to be successful. Those things are really important. So those interpersonal skills and relationship building. So if you're a nice person, right, I'm sure most of you, all of you are nice people, project that and just be yourself, because that will have as much bearing on your success of who you work, who wants to work with you, who gives you funding, who, you know, buys your product or whatever. That, but times your credibility, because you know your stuff, because you've learnt it and you've you know, you're an expert in your field. But they're kind of almost, I don't know if it's equal, Tom, but it feels like they're both hugely important in long-term success.
Well, I would say, remember the book by Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People?
Yes.
that old book still works, still good. It's still good. And I know when in my career, we would send employees that didn't understand, they had good technical skills, but they couldn't
Yeah.
get along with other people. So we'd send them to Dale Carnegie because if
Did you? You used to send
you,
them the book.
yeah, we'd send them to the training, Dan. And so they either save their career by turning around and stop being part of my French students, stop being an asshole, start being a team player. And
Oh, wow.
if Dale Carnegie don't help you with it, you're an asshole and you're out of here. Anyway, that's all we have. I appreciate Dan. I appreciate your time. You rocked, man. This was an awesome session.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks,
This was
Tom.
deep
Thanks,
level stuff. Now, before we go, first of all, there's a couple people here. I see Max, Shannon, Darby, Dan, Connor, Jessica. I know is on her phone, so she might be traveling. Let's take yourself off there. We want to do the famous thumbs up goodbye photo and thank Dan as we click out of here. There we go. Thank you for doing that. All right, on the count of three, we're going to give the three. 1, 2, 3. The third number 3, we're going to give the thumbs up and thank Dan as we click off the meeting. All right, on 1, 2, 3. Hold on a second. Hold on. Wait a minute. Somebody just came in the room. We messed up. All right, now. All right, 1, 2, 3. Go. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Dan, again, thank you. And take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everyone. Thanks very much.